Last month, I tier ranked the books I had planned to read in March, having not read most of them, all of them except one. And that was fun. I enjoyed doing that. It was an interesting exercise in seeing how I thought I would like a book. And I've been looking forward all month to doing this video where we actually see, well, one, did I read all 9 books that I had hoped to read? I thought it was unlikely. I thought there was no way I was going to read 9 books this month. So let's find out about that. 2, were my assumptions correct? Did I rate them the same way that I thought I was going to rate them? And 3, did I stray from the path? Did I read any books that weren't on that list of 9 books that I wanted to read? All that and more coming up on this video of Book Yaps with Ash. Book Yaps with Ash. Okay, hello and welcome back to Book Yaps with Ash. I've gained a few subscribers since my last long form video, and if you are new here, thank you for coming and subscribing. And if you're not new here, also thank you for watching. That's great. If you haven't gone and watched the tier ranking video, go watch that first. I had to kind of rewatch it to remember what I said about all these books, so go there and come back and then watch this one. But yeah, in March, get this, I read 8 books. Thought I had 9 on the list, read 8, but I also DNF'd 3. So I actually have 11 to talk about today, which is kind of crazy. But the power in which I feel from my DNFing. I DNF'd a movie at the theater yesterday. It was this movie. Whack. I think we watched maybe half an hour of it. Maybe. DNF stuff. If you're not enjoying it, go do something else. I went to the bookstore instead. That's awesome. Okay. Anyways. So these are the books I read in March. It was really, really a great reading month. One of the best ones, maybe, of my life, potentially. And yeah, so let's compare the books I read with how I thought I was going to rate them. So this is not the order in which I read them. This is the order in which I ranked, I rated them in the previous video. So the first one was We Could Be Rats by Emily Austen. This is a book about 2 sisters. It is told from both of their perspectives over 3 different parts of the book. And it's split into 3 different parts. And the first part is basically a series of suicide note attempts from one of the sisters. Basically trying to write a suicide note that will explain why she's about to do what she's about to do without upsetting anybody. And that is just a really interesting premise to get you into a book. I'm not going to tell you what the other 2 parts were about because that would give a lot away. But essentially these 2 sisters, they care about each other, they love each other, but they just don't understand each other. One of them is kind of the peacekeeper of the family. They have emotionally manipulative, immature parents, and her job is to manage everybody's emotions at her own demise. I don't think demise is the right word, but you know what I mean. While the other one is more of the black sheep of the family, queer, non-conventional, willing to start confrontation in the name of having her family not be filled with bigots and hatefulness and all that. And I have been both of those people in the family dynamic, and so I related a lot to this book, a lot. And normally I think that Emily Austen's depiction of anxiety is pretty accurate, but this was the first book I read of hers that I was like, get out of my head, queen. What are you doing in here? So I thought I was going to rate this one 4 stars. I gave it 5 stars. And I told you that I would think critically and really consider my reviews, and I do. I review everything like this. I look at all these things: enjoyability, character work, plot, writing style, and attention holding. I give all those out of 5 and then tally it up, and then that's where my full review comes from. And I didn't have any issues with the book. There's nothing that I was like, I didn't like this, didn't like that. I liked it how it was. 5 stars. Okay, so I thought it would be 4. Gave it 5. Woo! Okay. On to the next. So next one was Fahrenheit 451. I thought that this one was going to be a 3-star for me because sometimes classics or books that are old are written in a way that I don't really enjoy the writing style, or it doesn't hold my attention. And this one I actually did like an immersive read, so there's an audiobook that Penn Badgley narrates, and so I listened and read it at the same time. I think that helped. I also don't think it was really in that writing style that would have been more challenging or less engaging for me. I loved Fahrenheit 451. I thought it was really well done. Like, you think, oh, this is a book about burning books, which like it is at a high level, and this is the whole point of the book, is that it's actually about more than that, and like not about that at all in a way. It's about this character who's living in this world where like you don't ask questions, you don't really get to know each other and talk to each other, because that could create differences and conflict and unhappiness essentially. And he meets this young girl who does ask questions, and she's seen as like antisocial because she talks and asks questions and wants to get to know people, and she brings these questions to him, and he starts kind of questioning everything he does. And he is a fireman, but he doesn't fight fires, he burns books, and the burning of the books started as a way of censorship, and now we're in this part of the society where like it doesn't really matter, no one's reading anymore anyways. And if you haven't read this book and you consider yourself a reader, you like books and you think that they should stay relevant, this story is like, this is the story for that case. But yeah, it really shines a light on like why we shouldn't just be reading summaries of books, why we should be reading whole books, the nuances, the details, the characters, the inflections, reading between the lines, all that, critical thinking, all that. So it has that message, of course. I knew it would have that message, but just the story itself was very engaging. I had a hard time putting it down. When I wasn't reading it, I was thinking about it. And so for that reason, 5 stars. Boom. Already having a great time. Already rating them higher than we thought. Yes. Okay. The next book on the list is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I thought I was going to rate it 4-star. I thought I was really going to love it. I listened to half of the audiobook, and I got so annoyed and overstimulated at just the back and forth. The unnecessary dialogue that is taking so long to get to the point. And also, every third word is a new word that I have to figure out what that means. So for those reasons, I DNF'd this book. Didn't expect that, but I wasn't vibing with it. I wasn't having a good time, and I wanted Stephen Fry's voice to get the fuck away from my ears. Nothing against him at all. Nothing against him. It wasn't for me. And you know what? I was coming off of a Project Hail Mary high, which I will get to. And I think, it's on these lists of like, if you like Project Hail Mary, read these books, which I feel like are pushing way too much sci-fi and not enough of what people really like about Project Hail Mary. Anyways, moving on. I didn't finish the book. I didn't like the book. The next book that I had planned to read was The People in the Trees. I thought I was going to give this book a 3-star. This book I did not start. And I don't think I will. Maybe like down the line, but I've returned it to the library and I'm not planning on reading it anytime soon. I remember reading the first page and being interested, but the moment's passed. That was like in February. Now it's April. So we're moving on. Next book. Yes. The book everybody's talking about, the book you can't escape, the movie you can't escape, and to be honest, for good frickin' reason, okay? I read this book physically 2 years ago. I just listened to the audiobook, which was just an incredible experience. I always recommend, like, if you've read the book and you love it, try out the audio. A lot of the newer ones have great character work and tone and everything implied that I can't do in my head. I did not want this book to end. I really stretched it out over a 2-week period, and then I just had to finish it. I didn't want it to end. I love it so much. I actually think now it is my favorite book of all time. I loved the movie. I thought they did a really good job at, like, changing things that were, you know, in Ryland's head and making them visual. Yeah, it's just above the rest. And that's why I said it was going to be a 5-star again. I hoped it would hold up. It is a 6-star. It is a 6-star. It is up there. It is literally a billion. It is a star system. Okay? And that's all I'll say about that. Everybody's talking about Project Hail Mary. I won't keep talking about it. But if you want to talk with me about it, then I will. The next one, Go Luck Yourself, by Sarah Rash. I thought this was going to be a 5-star. No, I thought it was going to be a 4-star. And I gave it a 5-star. I really liked it. This was enemies to lovers, the heir to St. Patrick's Day, and the Prince of Christmas hating each other and then liking each other and then loving each other. You know how enemies to lovers is. But also there was a lot of Irish history included in this book. Some things I learned about Ireland. It was really cool to read. I thought the writing was great. I did a bit of immersive reading for this one too, just because I really wanted to, like, hear the accents, because it was written like in an accent in a way, and so that was awesome. That was really enjoyable. And yeah, I love the concept of, like, holidays being kind of like countries and it being political but magical and gay. Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect. So 5 stars. Next, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. I had already started this book when I recorded the last video, and I wasn't sure if I was going to finish it because it had been a while since I finished a nonfiction book, like a year. And I had started quite a few, but they just, like, aren't holding my attention these days, you know, and I'm DNFing things like it's nobody's business. I just, like, once you start, you can't really stop. So if I'm just having, like, a little bit of not fun, bye, you know? But this book, I finished, for one. Yes. For two, I thought it was amazing. I thought it was a really good nonfiction book. It was just this blend of history, science, biography. It was told really well. That was, like, engaging and kept you interested. The people in the Lacks family that the author focused on, like, she did a lot of research, but she also spent, like, a decade with Deborah, specifically Henrietta's daughter, trying to uncover information about Henrietta herself, but just, like, also getting to know her. And it really shows in this book. So I really recommend it. This is something I think most people have kind of heard of, the idea of the HeLa cells, or, like, these cells that are immortal and have led to, like, tons and tons of scientific advancements, but it's so much more than that. It's like a true trolley problem in a way of, like, should people get credit for their cells being involved in science? Should they have a say in where their cells go? Which, like, I think if we weren't in a capitalist society, my answer would be, you know, just no, like, let's have them, you know, create progress. But we are in a capitalist society, and that means that it's $1 billion industry, and the family has no health care. And so that's fucked up. That's my take on that. But yeah, great book if you want to learn more about it. The audiobook is also great. Apparently there's a movie that I haven't watched. But yeah, it's a frustrating story for sure, but really interesting. Also shines a light on just, like, how fucked up the healthcare system really is. It's all fucked up, you know. Yeah. Okay, next one. The Women by Kristen Hanna. This one I thought I was going to give 5 stars. Had big shoes to fill with The Nightingale, which to me is like a 6-star. I gave it a 4.5. So the Women is about the Vietnam War, which I knew nothing about. And this led me to go down a rabbit hole about what the Vietnam War was for and about, and not good, obviously. But this is about, we follow Frankie, who follows her brother's footsteps and tries to be the family hero, because her father holds, like, it was Navy soldiers at this high hero level, and she just felt one day like, I want to do that. I want to follow in those footsteps. I want to be a hero as well. I want to like fight for my country, blah blah blah. But it was at a time where like there were women in Vietnam. She went as a nurse, but it was just like completely denied that women were in Vietnam. So the story follows her in Vietnam being a combat nurse, essentially, seeing just the worst possible things that you could see, then coming home and not being welcomed back by the country, who was like totally against the war at this point and against anybody who was there, which just isn't a fair reaction. But you can't blame like her or anybody. You can blame the government for this situation. But regardless, she was treated really poorly. Her family, especially her father, refused to acknowledge that she was there. And then she was having PTSD. And so it follows all of that. And I thought it was great. I read like 70% of it over 2 days. Could not stop thinking about Frankie and like what was going on with her. And I just couldn't put the book down. But I did find some parts predictable. Like, it would kind of foreshadow that something was going to happen. And then I'd be like, oh, that's probably going to happen to this character or with this character. And then it would, like, a few pages later. So that took me out of it a bit. Made it feel more fiction. It is fiction. But for that reason, I thought I was going to give it a 5. I gave it a 4.5. You know, it is what it is. But I really liked it. I definitely recommend it. I think it's a great way to learn about that part of American history, Vietnam history as well, and it gave me a different perspective on veterans. For one, it reinforced my perspective on war, and I hope Frankie as well. That's all I can say about that. So, if you were keeping track here, I had 9 books on my list. I did start 8 of them, and wait, I skipped one. I started 8 of them. I DNF'd 2 of them, and I didn't start one of them. The one I skipped is The Wilderness. So I DNF'd this book, but let me clarify. This book was the only one that didn't get renewed at the library because someone had it on hold, and I had to return it, and I had 100 pages left. And this is a really good book. It follows 5 friends and goes through different of their perspectives over, like, their whole adult lives, but it bounces back and forth in time, and there's no like linear plot associated with it. So when it got to the point where I had to return it to the library, I had like 100 pages left, which if this was like 100 pages of We Could Be Rats or The Women, I think I could have done it in like a day. But it was just the writing style, the subject matter, I just had to be slower with it, and I was like, I can't rush through 100 pages. So I just gave it back. And because there was no plot, I was like, I'm not concerned about what happens because I don't even know what's like currently happening, what's important. So I looked it up. I looked up like what happens at the end. And I think if I did finish this book, I probably would have given it a 4-star, which is what I thought I was going to give it. But yeah, I had to give it back. And if I didn't have to give it back, I probably would have finished it. And maybe wouldn't have even started another one of these because it would have taken some time. But I recommend it. If the premise sounds good to you, it was good. I just had to give it back, so didn't finish it. C'est la vie. I've been saying that a lot. So yes, of the 9 books, I started 8 of them. DNF'd 2. That's pretty good. You know, like Hitchhikers, I got halfway through. Wilderness, over halfway through. So, you know, gave him the old college try. So get this. On top of those 9 books, I have 2 more to talk about that I read that weren't on the list. So I did stray, but I also kind of stuck to the list mostly. So that's awesome. Next one that I want to talk about is Foe by Ian Reid. This is kind of circulating the bookstores now because it was nominated for Canada Reads, which I think it was published in 2018, so it's not new by any means. And Ian Reid also wrote I'm Thinking of Ending Things, that book that was pretty popular in 2021 when it was becoming a Netflix movie. That book was wacky, and I enjoyed it. But Foe is essentially about this couple. They live out on this remote farm, and we follow Junior from his perspective. He says, we don't ever get visitors here. It's just us. And all of a sudden there's a visitor, and he's showing up, and he's telling them things that they have to do, that they have to follow. They don't really want to follow these things. I'm trying to be really vague here because I went into this with not a lot of prior knowledge. And yeah, so we're following Junior. He's not trusting this guy who keeps showing up. His wife, Henrietta, no. Was her name Henrietta too? Hen. Well, we're just gonna call her Hen because he called her Hen. She starts acting weird, and yeah, that's what I'll say about that. There was a point in the middle where I was like, okay, this is starting to feel a little bit repetitive. I feel like we haven't gotten much new information, so I'm gonna need something to happen. And then something did happen, and it did make the ending way worth it. So it did almost lose me there in the middle, but sticking around for the end was super, super worth it. This story could for sure be a Black Mirror episode, and I do think they're actually making it into a movie. But yeah, if you are a fan of Black Mirror, I think you will really like this story. It had a pretty cool ending that I don't think I saw coming. I had theories, but they didn't really line up. But yeah, this one was good. I mean, it's like a quick read. It's a little over a couple hundred pages, so not a long commitment, but I gave this one 4 stars. Last book of the month to talk about, and that is Rejection. My coworker recommended this book to me, which is wild because this is a wild book that I don't think I'd recommend to anyone. But this is 5 to 7 short stories all about different characters and how they deal, or more accurately don't deal well with rejection. I think the book started off really strong, and then every chapter just got a little bit worse. And maybe that was the point. Maybe it was supposed to get like more and more unhinged. But by the 5th one, I was like, I am super bored. This is dragging on, and so I didn't finish it at like 88%. Sorry. But honestly, like the first 2 chapters were good, and I would recommend reading those. The first one, it's about this man who claims he's a feminist, and he's just always friend zoned, so he's basically like an incel, and it's from his perspective on how, like, he's trying really hard to get a girlfriend, and none of the girls want to date him, and they all date these shitty guys, and he's not a shitty guy, but like he just thinks he's not, and so he's like the worst person you've ever met. And no, he's not likable, but like the chapter was really not enjoyable to read, but it was like a good take on that type of person and how they deal with rejection. And then the next chapter was about this girl who had this like best friend type relationship with this guy, and one day they kind of like jump each other and they have sex, and she becomes obsessed with him and he doesn't really want anything from it, and how she deals with that. And to me, that story was very much like she didn't actually really like him, she liked the attention, and it was just all about like what that situationship did to her. She, again, not a great person, didn't deal with it really well, but like good take on that situation. The third story is the weirdest thing I've ever read, and I won't tell you about it because I might get banned from the internet for telling you about it, but it was just vile sexual fantasy. Okay. 4th one, also weird. This guy who like overuses slang terms is like startup tech bro, and how he's like seeing this girl who he's just trying to like help her fulfill her life goals and dreams, but she doesn't want to, and situation with that, and it gets crazy by the end. And then the 5th one I didn't finish. I don't even really know what was going on in the 5th one. I was like, I don't want to finish this. And then I went into my book club and I said, Perch, do I have to finish this? And Perch said no, so I didn't. And so that was like kind of a downer, bummer way to end the month, but still I like read some really good books. Some books I thought were going to be good ended up being great. Some books that I thought were going to be good ended up being not great. And some books ended up being good. So I would say it was a really good reading month. I don't know how I ended up reading, I guess, kind of like 10 books. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and a half, 8, like almost 9. That's crazy. So that was great. I'm looking forward to April. I'm about to be part of multiple read-alongs, so it's like reading Under the Dome, but reading like chunk a week for the next 8 weeks, and then reading some Stephen King short stories. So I'm looking forward to this like variety that's about to happen in April. I also have a huge TBR for April, and it's hard to say if that will be stuck to, completed, whatever, but stay tuned because we will find out. Yep, this has been Book Yaps with Ash. I've been Ash. This is what I read in March. What'd you read in March? What was your favorite book that you read in March? Let me know, and maybe I'll read it one day. Maybe I've already read it. So yeah, that's this on that. And again, if you're new here and you made it to the end, thank you for that, and thank you for subscribing. If you are watching this and you're not subscribed, you could maybe subscribe. That would be really cool, and I'd appreciate it. And that's that. So we'll see you next time.